Welcome to this explainer. Let's just dive right in, because this topic is absolutely fascinating. You probably think your camera captures images, but it doesn't. Not really. What it's actually capturing is a continuous wave of physical light. So today, we're going to uncover exactly how that physical light transforms into the digital photos you see on your screen. To understand how this works, we're going to follow the microscopic hero's journey of a single light beam. Our agenda covers 5 distinct stages: catching the light, the color problem, analog to digital conversion, processing the digital image, and finally, storing the final data. To make this journey super easy to follow, we're using a really handy 4-step memory trick as our roadmap: capture, convert, process, and store. Keep this roadmap in your head, and the entire kind of complex pipeline of digital photography makes perfect sense. Let's move to step 1. Section 1. Catching the light. The journey from subject to sensor. It all starts out in the real world. Light reflects off your subject, let's say a bowl of red and green apples, and travels straight toward the camera. It enters the lens, which basically acts as the camera's eye. The lens gathers that continuous physical light and focuses it directly onto the image sensor at the back. But right away, we hit our first major hurdle. As our sources state, the photosites on the sensor only measure the brightness of the light, not its color. Your image sensor is literally covered in millions of these tiny light-sensitive elements called photosites. When light hits them, they generate an analog electrical signal based on how intense the light is. More light equals a stronger signal. But here's the catch: they're completely colorblind. They have absolutely no idea if the light is red, blue, or green. They only know if it's bright or dark. Section 2, the color problem, filtering the light. Since our photosites are essentially just blank brightness detectors, engineers had to come up with a highly clever workaround to capture the colorful world we actually see. That workaround? It's called the Bayer pattern. It's this microscopic mosaic color filter array placed directly over the sensor. Every single photosite gets its own tiny color filter, either red, green, or blue. Now look closely at the math here. The pattern consists of 50% green, 25% red, and 25% blue filters. Why is twice as much green? Well, it's because human vision is actually much more sensitive to the green luminance component of light. By capturing more green samples, the camera can produce an image that looks sharper and way more natural to our human eyes. Section 3. Analog to digital conversion. The transformation. This step is, frankly, the absolute climax of this explainer. This is the exact moment where the continuous physical world is transformed into binary computer data. Up until this exact point in the camera, we've been dealing with an analog signal. That means continuous physical light waves with naturally continuous intensity values. Imagine a smooth, unbroken ramp. But a computer can't process a smooth physical wave, right? It needs digital data. It needs discrete numerical binary data that processors can actually understand. So imagine a set of rigid stairs instead of that ramp. We have to somehow chop up that continuous physical ramp into distinct, fragmented digital steps. So how does this translation actually happen? Enter the analog to digital converter, or AD converter. This acts as the ultimate translator between the real physical world and the computer world. And to pull this off, the converter relies on 2 fundamental tools: sampling and quantization. Let's break these 2 tools down. Sampling deals with spatial position. It answers the incredibly simple question, where? It takes continuous physical space and turns it into a discrete pixel grid, which ultimately determines your spatial resolution. Quantization, on the other hand, deals with intensity or amplitude. It answers the question, how much? It takes the continuous brightness of the light and rounds it to the nearest discrete numerical level, determining your intensity resolution. Simply put, sampling builds the empty grid, and quantization fills each box in that grid with a specific brightness number. To really see quantization in action, let's look at bit depth. An 8-bit sensor gives the camera 256 discrete intensity levels to choose from, usually ranging from 0 for pure black to 255 for pure white. But look at what happens as we increase that bit depth. A 10-bit sensor has over 1,000 levels. A 12-bit sensor has over 4,000. And a 14-bit sensor? Try over 16,000 discrete levels. A higher bit depth gives the camera vastly more numerical choices, which means a much smoother, more accurate transition from your deepest shadows to your brightest highlights. Section 4. Processing the digital image, rebuilding reality. Okay, so now we actually have our digital numbers. The camera has to take all this fragmented, discrete, binary data and start stitching reality back together. Remember that Bayer pattern from earlier? Because of it, each individual photosite only captured red, green, or blue. That means our data is literally missing 2/3 of its color information for any given pixel. Enter demosaicing. This is the digital image process that estimates and reconstructs the missing color components from that raw Bayer data. It looks at neighboring pixels and uses complex math to guess the missing colors. It magically transforms that raw 50-25-25 mix into a beautiful, full-color RGB pixel grid where every single pixel finally has its own red, green, and blue values. And rebuilding this reality requires some serious processing power. Just think about the sheer scale for a second. 36 million. If you're shooting a standard 12-megapixel image and it's processed at 24 bits per pixel, the camera instantly generates 36 million bytes. That's 36 megabytes of uncompressed data for just one single photograph. It's absolutely incredible. Which brings us to our final stage, Section 5, storing the final data, buffer to SD card. So how on earth does a camera manage a massive 36 million byte flood of data in a fraction of a second without completely crashing? Especially if you're holding down the shutter taking continuous shots. The answer is the buffer. The buffer is temporary memory used to hold massive amounts of image data while it's being processed or transferred to storage. Think of it as a vital, high-speed waiting room. It temporarily absorbs that huge flood of data, allowing you to keep snapping photos rapidly while the slightly slower image processor and memory card are frantically working to catch up. From that high-speed waiting room, the data finally flows out of the buffer and into its final image storage. The light's incredible journey concludes as this fully processed binary data comes to rest safely on physical media, like an SD card, saved in final file formats that you definitely recognize, like JPEG or RAW. Let's bring this full circle and look back at our 4-step memory trick to lock in everything we've just learned about how cameras turn light digital. 1. Capture. We use the lens and sensor to turn continuous physical light into an analog electrical signal. 2. Convert. The AD converter translates that analog signal into digital data using spatial, sampling, and intensity quantization. 3. Process. We use digital processing like Demosaicing to rebuild the full color reality from the raw sensor data. And 4. Store. That massive amount of digital data flows through a high-speed buffer and lands safely onto your SD card. So the crucial takeaway here is actually quite philosophical. As we've seen, a digital image isn't reality. It's just a spatially discrete, intensity-discrete numerical representation of a real-world image. We chopped up space and we chopped up brightness just to make numbers a computer could read. Which leaves us with this final question. When you click that shutter, are you truly capturing a moment or just a fragmented mathematical sample of it? It's definitely something to think about the next time you snap a photo. Thanks for joining me on this explainer. Keep asking questions and keep exploring.